Welcome to Kitchen Table Finance.
Hey Dave, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Nick. How are you?
Doing well. We got some sunshine, a little bit of melting going on around here, which is a
Yeah,
welcome sight this week. And
turning the
happy
corner
for a
maybe.
podcast Friday. Yeah, turning the
Yeah,
corner a little bit for sure. Spring will be here. March is happening next week, they tell me.
March will happen.
Interesting topic today, Dave, as we continue our talk about, going from spender to saver in retirement. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about George Kinder's financial life planning process and how to apply that to retirement savings, which is something that we do here internally at our firm and is very important to us in having these conversations. So just want to have a general kind of give our listeners some idea of what it is and why we do it and how it can be impactful for them.
Yeah, this is a good conversation to have because I think we touch on it just about every week in one
Yeah.
form or another, but
Mhm.
we've never, as far as I recall in our podcast history, have sat down and just explained what it is and why.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So, a little bit of background on George Kinder, who I like to call the father of financial life planning. So
Okay.
George was a CPA, financial planner, and I think it's like the 80s when he started
Yeah, he's been
his
around
three
as long as I've been.
questions and working with clients, and kind of his whole thing, his whole financial life planning in general is really about finding out what's most important to you and creating a financial plan around your own true unique freedom and
Mhm.
less around building wealth or increasing your net worth and things like that. And that really gets to the heart of what we're talking about here this month, and that is how to go from a saver to a spender. And the best way that we know how to do that is to first distill it down and figure out what's most important to you and why that is, and then go from there.
Right. Coming into this investment financial planning world from more of an investment focus, as most of us did in our generation, it's interesting how things have shifted in this direction, but it makes so much sense when you start to really understand financial planning. So much of it, like it's not just a math problem.
Right. Yeah.
It's a math problem with feelings. So the right answer often comes down to what the client really at their heart wants to get done.
Yeah.
And should you do Roth conversions? Well, I can tell you how much it's going to save on math, but what I can't tell you
Right.
is what the value of like having a bigger portfolio at the end of your life to pass on to your kids tax free versus spending money now,
Right.
what that's going to mean to you.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. It's a very, and that's the challenge of it, right? Is how do we distill it down to what's going to bring you more happiness, right? What's going to bring
right.
you more joy and fulfillment? And how do we make sure that your spending reflects those values?
Yeah.
That's a very different conversation than what's the math on a Roth conversion? What does that mean for my
Right.
kids someday, right?
Right.
Not to, belabor that, but for some people that is the right thing. Maybe that
Mhm.
maybe that is your overall goal, and that's perfectly fine. And that's the one thing about going through financial life planning training is we're not here to judge you, but you better know the answer to that, because if you're not sure, then the
Right.
math's going to
Well,
kind of eat you alive and not give you that life
yeah.
satisfaction, right?
Yeah. We need to at least come to some kind of understanding on what direction you want to go because it's
Yeah.
going to drive all the other decisions.
Right. Well, and I think that's the big thing when we talk about going from being a saver to a spender is that overcoming that fear, that kind of scarcity
Mhm.
mindset about outliving your money, or what if I need it for my care, or what if, I want to pass it on to my kids. Like, how do we overcome that? And one of the best ways is to figure out, what's most important to you and making sure you're able to do that and still do those other things,
Mhm.
because that's how you live a life without regret, right? And those are the conversations that you need to have so that you're not as worried or as fearful about, what if I need that in the future, of that scarcity mindset, because if you get
Yeah.
trapped in it, it's almost impossible to get out, right?
Right.
There's a lot that goes into the financial life planning process, but today I just want to talk about kind of the three questions that George is famous for.
Captures the essence of it for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So there's
Yeah.
this whole process that you go through, and by the way, and we talked about it a little bit last time. Like, I'm all for people going through and answering these questions. And George has a book and a website where you can do it on your own. But I'm a firm believer that doing it with someone is so much more beneficial than doing it on your own. But by all means, go out and do it on your own and think about it and have those conversations. But also really truly think about hiring somebody to help guide you through that. But essentially, there's three questions. Question number one is, imagine you're financially secure. How would you live your life? What would you do with the money? What would you change? What would you do differently? And really let yourself go. What I
Right.
love about this question is daydreams about, oh, that'd be cool if we did that. But how often do we actually like spend 30 minutes writing it all down on paper and really thinking it through, right?
Yeah.
And
And
I think it's just a great exercise to really, let yourself think about those things and not worry about, what exactly you're writing down or what you're thinking, right?
right. And we all have this innate sense that like more money is going to make so many things easier, but
Mm,
we don't take the time, like you said, to quantify what that really means. So yeah, take money out of the equation. If money wasn't an issue, what would you do? What would you be doing
yeah,
differently right now?
yeah. So question number one's kind of designed to get wide, right? We want to think about
Hmm.
all the potential things. And then question two and question three really start to change our thought process around, okay, how do we prioritize these things, right?
Yeah.
And so question two is, you visit your doctor who tells you have 5 to 10 years left to live. How would you change your life? What would be different? What would you do with the time that you have remaining? You're not going to be sick or ill or anything like that. You're going to feel fine. You just know that there's 5 to 10
There's a
years left.
finite. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so then you start thinking through, okay, if I had 5 to 10 years left, I just wrote down all these things that I'd like to do. Some of those are going to pop up as, yeah, I really need to do those now.
Hmm.
And some of them are going to be, that'd be fun, but I don't really, if I had 10 years left, I wouldn't worry too much about that. Right.
Right. Right. Well, and all those things that you mean to get to someday.
Mm,
That's what always gets me is like all those things that you're like, oh yeah, I want to do this. I want to write a book. I want to,
yeah.
climb a 14,000 foot mountain. When you start putting an end date on things, it's
Yeah.
yeah, it's a little different than just always planning to do something. I think
Yeah. It's,
that's the main thing that gets me there.
well, it's an interesting thing to go through with clients because we'll get all kinds of stuff like that, but we'll also get, well, I need to get my will set, right? Like I
Yeah.
need to, like, there's some like
The
practical
practical,
things
yeah,
that
the
come up.
financial planning things we're going to bug you about anyway, but yeah. Oh yeah, it's pretty common. In fact, I think I'm going to start using this in some of my client reviews because it comes up like, yeah, oh yeah, I need to go see my estate
Right.
planning attorney.
Yeah.
I'll do that before the next meeting. And it's like,
Yeah.
sure you will.
Exactly.
But yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah, you're
Yep.
right. That's a good point.
And so question three really brings this down to what's most important to you right now. And it does that. So question three, you go back to the doctor and they tell you only have 24 hours left to live. So what did you miss? Who did you not get to be? What did you not get to do?
Mm,
And really, instead of thinking about, okay, what am I going to do in these 24 hours? Think about like the emotions that arise about, man, this is, I really never
mhm.
got to do this thing, right? I never got to be this person, and really start thinking through and writing down like what is truly most important to you, because those are the things that we want to make sure as planners, a lot of times, not always, but a lot of times, that we're accounting for in your financial plan and helping you clear the space to do those things, right? And it really
Mhm.
kind of distills it down to, if you want to live without regrets, what does that look like? And I think for me, especially initially doing a lot of these, it's very, very rare that, the answer is something monetary, right? It's not
Right. Yeah, it's not
I
I need to
never
spend
got to buy that
$1 million.
$1 million beach house, right?
Yeah,
Or
yeah, yeah.
I had too much money in my IRA. It's more about, it's usually about family or the connections that you have. It's about your creativity. It's about in some cases, your place, where you are. Those are like the common ones that come up. And it's always interesting to me that it's not, it's never usually, now all those things have to do with money, but they're not centered around money, right?
Right. Where that always leads me to is, the idea that, okay, once you've gotten through that third question, and good luck, getting through that without getting
Yeah.
choked up.
Right.
But once you get through that, you need to ask yourself, why aren't you doing that every day? As the old cliche is, nobody's birth certificate has their expiration date written on it. So,
Yeah.
and why that gets to the heart of financial planning is, okay, arrange your priorities to match that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you're absolutely right. And so, like, the next step of the process is we try to paint this picture. And the reason why we do it this way is we want you to, in your mind, in your, emotions, to kind of connect and thinking about and actually experiencing a little bit of what it would be like to live that life of freedom and do those things. And then we always kind of pose the question of what could possibly get in your way. And for most people, it's really because it's, if it's spending more time with your family, what's going to get in your way? Well, really nothing, right? Like there's things that would get in the way, but they're not big enough to be like, I can't do this, right? And the next step of that meeting is what we call our obstacles meeting, where we actually address all those things that do come up and do get in your way and make a plan for how we, move them out of the way or adjust things or shift things. But it's always, very a moving process. But when you think of that and kind of how we apply that to retirement spending is we've really taken out and we've distilled down to like what's most important to you and what you want to do. And then all of a sudden, when we're making financial decisions and we're talking about retirement spending, it's not, hey, this is the best thing because it gives your kids more of a, more money when you more money when you pass away and this Roth conversion strategy. It's more about like, hey, we can use some of that right now to do these things that you told me that were the most important to you now and still be able to have money if something comes up in the future, right?
Yeah, I think we should also talk real quick about where people's mind goes when we start talking about this, and my own too, both as a practitioner of financial planning and as personally going through the process is, okay, yeah, but that's not realistic. The idea that part of that planning process and that obstacles meeting is like, okay, like if you tell me like what you really want to do is spend the next 2 years on a beach on some island, well, maybe we can't make that happen specifically, but what is it about that?
Yeah.
What is it about that captures your imagination and makes you think that that's what you want to do? And how can we get you as close to that as we can?
Absolutely. And there are restrictions. There is, monetary things, right? We're not all Jeff Bezos out there with unlimited resources, but it's really about finding, to your point, Dave, like picture yourself on the beach. What are you feeling? Who's with you? What are the emotions that arise? Because all that stuff is stuff that we can replicate. It might not be in a beach in an island for 2 years, but we can certainly find ways to get that, what you want to experience in a different setting. And so that's really kind of the important part of it. So going back to, how this all relates to retirement spending and how this helps to go from a saver to a spender. It really is, it's about the emotions, right? And so if you want to, if you think about why you're not spending money in a lot of cases, it's because the emotion of the fear of I might need this later, right? There's a plethora of reasons, right? And so the only way, there's not enough facts and figures that are going to change those emotions for you because that's not what facts and figures do. And so the best way to do that is to tap into the stronger emotion of this is what I truly want my life to look like in order to change that equation of do I spend more money or not, right? And so I think that's an important realization for a lot of people, especially when it comes to, there's no amount of concrete math and proof that I can give someone that says, hey, you can spend more, and they're going to feel good about it, until we actually tap into the why you're going to spend more and how that's going to make you feel.
Right.
Just kind of thinking through from a practical standpoint, like we said, the benefit of working with a financial life planner in this kind of scenario is, because it's emotional and because there's a lot of self-doubt, when you try to do it yourself, you kind of get stuck to this point where you're like, yeah, I want that, but I can't have it. Right. And that is really, really hard to overcome if you don't have somebody that's with you, that's guiding you, that's telling you you can do it, that's helping you get through that hard part, right? Because we're all kind of prisoners of our own mind when it comes to what we think we can and can't do.
Yeah.
Right? Myself included. I know for a fact that like working with a financial life planner has helped me do things that I don't know. I do know I wouldn't have done it without that. I think that's super beneficial, of that human connection, of having someone that can kind of guide you through there. And so really thinking about that, as far as if you're looking for a financial life planner, George Kinder actually has a website out there that you can go and find a registered life planner in your area. Obviously, you've taken some training, Dave, and gone through some of that. I'm a registered life planner through the Kinder Institute here in Lansing. But those are, that I think that was the biggest thing for me, because I had played around with a lot of the questions with clients and myself before, but until I actually went through the process myself, it didn't really click like it did when I had someone there to guide me through and have those conversations.
Yeah, it's like trying to do therapy on yourself. It's you need somebody there that's going to push you to actually do the hard work.
And I'm pretty sure if you do therapy on yourself, they have a special room that you can hang out in.
Okay, bad example.
I think the other thing too is we talk about it a lot, and there's a lot of, one of the things that I struggled with, especially when you read like Life Planning for You, or some of George's work, which I highly recommend. And we talk about this a lot as well. The examples that get put into books are like the extreme, right? And so it's kind of always just like, well, if I'm going to go through this, and it is okay to be happy with your current life and want to continue to live like you live. The outcome of this for everyone isn't a huge life transformation. But I got to tell you that having someone walk you through and talk about this with you and what your vision is, and knowing that, hey, you know what? I do have everything I need right now. I don't need a whole lot more. I just need to continue doing more of what I'm already doing. That is powerful in itself, almost more powerful than needing a huge life change, right?
Right. A lot of times it ends up just validating what people are hoping they can do in the first place.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. We will make sure we put some links in the show notes to some of the resources on George Kinder and life planning for our listeners. And as always, if you have had an experience with this or have any other questions for us, we'd love to hear it at info@srbadvisors.com. Dave, as always, it has been a pleasure.
Love it. Thanks, Nick.
Thank you for joining us for another chat about your retirement and finances. Please hit that subscribe button. You can also contact us at srbadvisors.com or email us at info@srbadvisors.com. See you next time on Kitchen Table Finance.
This is a Zedia Media production.